Welcome back, everybody, to ADHD and Free, the podcast, brought to you by the Awareness Space Network. This is a podcast and social media platform that explores how ADHDers can live their truth and feel free in their lives. We hear from inspiring coaches, therapists, experts, and fellow ADHDers from all over the world who sit down with me, Owen Morgan, to share their wisdom with us. I'm a wellbeing coach and a passionate neurodivergent human who received his ADHD diagnosis at 41. That day, the truth transformed my life, and I was finally free of the burden of not knowing why I struggled to fit into traditional societal expectations. Can you hear me, ADHDers? My mission is to explore how the human spirit and understanding our whole self can bring us to a life full of possibilities. So I'm very excited today. On the show, we have Jack Newton from the podcast Auticast, and we're going to talk all things ASD, autism, in comparison to ADHD, but more importantly, we're two, I think, beautiful humans doing beautiful work, and I cannot wait to share our experiences with you. So welcome to the show, Jack. How are you today? How are you feeling about being a guest, more importantly, because you are the ultimate host?
Hello. Thank you so much for that introduction. That was very nice of you. It's lovely to be here. It's lovely to be on another podcast for a change, because I'm so used to being engrossed in my own. It's very, very lovely to be a guest, because it doesn't happen very often, and I just love being involved in other people's energies, other people's spaces, and it's already lovely. So I'm very, very happy to be here, and I'm feeling very well. Thank you very much.
Good, I'm glad. And yeah, no, I get it. I've been doing this a very long time as a host, and when I do occasionally get a guest spot, it's incredible. I don't have to have notes or questions I have to follow.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's nice to have a break from the usual. I mean, we both love what we do, but it's lovely to cross over sometimes and kind of take a different dynamic.
Definitely, and a chance for you to properly share your experiences, rather than making sure that your guest gets as much time as they want. So I got my first guest spot in January, which I'm excited about, because I've only been diagnosed for less than 2 months. This is also new,
very new.
With my ADHD, I get straight on it. As soon as I got diagnosis, I was like, right, podcast. So thank you, ADHD, for that. Very, very useful. But yeah, today's going to be a fascinating one. Me and previous guests like Darren Kamak, who you know well, and other people who have come on who have ADHD, we touched on this, but I think we can really go much deeper here today, especially as we're both flying the flags for our relevant diagnoses, which is amazing. But just give us a sense of what you're doing today. So just let the audience know what you're doing. So obviously you've got the podcast, and obviously you're really passionate about neurodivergent awareness. So I would love to know why you're doing the podcast, and why do you care so much about us NDers? I'm really interested.
Oh, there's the question. So a little bit like you, I knew I had some prior knowledge before diagnosis that I was essentially what my circumstances were autistic. That was kind of something that happened a good few years ago now. We're probably talking a tail end of 2018, beginning of 2019, when autism was kind of first brought into my awareness. And it's been an incredible journey of self-discovery, of self-acceptance, of huge amounts of kind of compassion, self-empathy, real levels of understanding and exploration. And I think in terms of the podcast, I mean, my official diagnosis, which I'm sure we'll get onto, came last year, which is when I was doing a previous podcast before the one I currently do, but Auticast is kind of the kind of full version of the kind of the project I wanted to do. So Auticast is a result of me receiving a diagnosis not very late in life, but later in life, and wanting to turn that experience of spending, essentially the first 30 years of my life struggling and feeling lost and feeling like I had no identity, like I had no place, like I had there was no understanding about my existence. I wanted to turn that into something that spoke not only for my benefit, but actually allowed other people's voices to come in as well, and other people's energies, other people's stories, other people's perspectives, other people's brilliance, but also other people's vulnerability, and struggles and challenges, and the really raw reflection of what it's like for a lot of people to experience the world differently. And that's the beauty, I think, of podcasting in itself, but podcasting for something that focuses around a topic like autism or neurodivergence or ADHD, it is to show people that we say it a lot, that all autistic people are different from the next, and the same with ADHD, the same with other forms of neurodivergence, but to actually show people that every single episode, to actually show people so they can see it, they can hear it. This guest is completely different from last week, but there's things they share. There's commonalities that there's things that tie them together, but also things that make them so beautifully individual. And that was the motivating factor. And 3.5 seasons in, I'm just approaching the end of my third batch of kind of weekly content, and it's been a heck of a year. And I've spoken to some truly wonderful, remarkable, special people who otherwise would never have told their story, who otherwise would never have, we'd never have discovered just how wonderful they were. And that has been such a huge privilege and a huge, huge honor to do. And I'm very, very proud of it.
Yeah, you should be. The quality of your show, the kind of guests you're getting on, the things that you're talking about are so, so important. And we talked off camera about, we all want purpose and we all want meaning. We all want the ripple effect. You do something, there's a ripple that goes out there and helps people. So, when we pass on from this life, we know we've left something behind. I think podcasters certainly have, because there's plenty of audio out there with our voice on it. So that helps. But I just want to honor everything you were saying there. I like to sort of share what comes up for me in that moment. And it's the loneliness I find, how lonely it is before diagnosis, just not knowing what the hell's going on and why you struggle so much. It's so lonely trying to get people to kind of like understand when you can't explain it. And actually, when you get the diagnosis, I felt as lonely. So, right, I don't really have a tribe yet. I don't have a neurodivergent tribe. So everybody I haven't even told some people because I know they won't get it. That's terrible. So now I'm feeling like I shouldn't be as lonely, but I'm more lonely because I'm alienating people who don't get it in my circle. So I'm out here building my circle, as people such as yourself, building peers and hopefully friends over time. And I encourage all NDers, get out there, see if you can find groups and just find your tribe, because you won't feel as lonely. So does that ring a bell with you, this kind of sense of no one gets me, whether I have the diagnosis or not? It's really weird, isn't it?
It sounds awfully, well, it doesn't. I mean, it depends what sort of person you are, but I was going to say it sounds a little bit cheesy, but I really do subscribe to the belief that if I can help it, if I can directly contribute, I don't ever want anyone to go through the first 3 decades of their life feeling as lonely or as isolated or as misunderstood or as, I suppose, in a lot of ways, unwanted as part of wider society, as I did, because it's so unnecessary. It's tragic. Actually, the word I would use is tragic, and I really want to be a part of a society as a whole, but also as part of communities that encourage and kind of celebrate that we have so much in common with each other, but actually the things that make us individual can be very, very different from each other. But actually that is human life. And that's what I love so much about what I do, is because every single time I pick up that microphone and every time I hit record, there is usually a new person on the other end who just completely shines and completely highlights those differences, but also those similarities at the same time. And that person has a little less, hopefully, of a feeling of I'm alone with my experience, because now they're not. And that's what's so powerful. And that's why however much self-doubt I have as a podcaster, however much imposter syndrome I experience, however much I worry about am I doing a good job? Am I doing an effective job? It's that alone that will not allow me to stop, because it's just so special, and I love it.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that in many ways. Obviously, because you had your previous podcast and I've done stuff in the past, we've been doing this a fairly long time. So once you're in and you've got the bug, a lot of podcasts start and then 6 or 7 months later they disappear. And I get that because people don't get how time consuming it all is. So, but if you can fit all the other elements in, it's hard to put it away. I've tried to quit a few times and it's just impossible. So we are here. Okay, let's jump into a little bit more. Let's find out, what are the clear or not so clear differences between what you and me both experience, what the crossovers are, things like that. We've done a little bit of this already, but I think today we can do a bit more depth on it. So what I'd really like to know, because obviously this is normally what I ask ADHDers, but I'm really excited to ask you, what was happening in your life? Because you said the official diagnosis was not that long ago, but I presume there was a build up to that point. So what was happening when you got to a point you're like, I really don't understand what's happening to me here. Hold on a second. I would like to explore more to work towards an assessment. To tell me what kind of pivotal things were happening. We're like, oh my God, do I have neurodivergence?
Yes, that's quite an easy one to pinpoint. Unfortunately, I know it's not that easy for a lot of other people to pinpoint where exactly things started to kind of escalate or turn corners. But for me, I had gone through, as I said, I was in my mid-20s by that point. So I'm 33 now. I was in my mid-20s at that point, and I was just literally cascading from one kind of, not disaster, but negative after negative, struggle after struggle, brick wall after brick wall. And, obviously when you're in your mid-20s, usually, depending on who you are, of course, you are surrounded by other human beings and, your fellow peers of similar age or, of kind of similar exposure to life. And my experience matched to no one else's. It was nothing. I was struggling to be in employment. I was struggling to have relationships. I was struggling to just manage ridiculous levels of anxiety. I was falling in and out of depression. I just did not find a place in life or in society that I seemed to fit. I just couldn't find one. And for anyone who ever says that, autistic people, ADHD people are not resilient, you're liars. You don't know what you're talking about, because, autistic people, I can say, obviously with more knowledge than perhaps ADHD, autistic people are some of the most resilient people I've ever encountered, ever. Because you have to be. Because you essentially exist in a world that isn't made for you, doesn't understand you, doesn't always particularly want you, and will not expand its own state of awareness or expand its own state of understanding or education to accommodate you. So you spend a lot of your time blundering around in the dark and feeling very lonely, very isolated, as we've mentioned, and really as if you're the problem, as if you're getting life wrong and it's on your shoulders. And it got to a stage, I think it must have been between 2016 and 2018, where I'd had 2 huge breakdowns, so complete mental breakdowns. One in 2016, the other in 2018. And that period was desperate, probably close to the end of my efforts, my energies, I think. And it was just, I've done this for long enough. Everything I've tried has not worked, or has not led to where I want to exist, where I want to be, where I want to fit. And I think that was just total desperation at that point. But it was in sort of the tail end of 2018 where the thing I think is really common with a lot of people who are neurodivergent is a lot of people will experience accessing health services, going to doctors, to GPs, to mental health workers. I spent a lot of time being churned around and around the mental health sector in the United Kingdom, with people not knowing what to do with me. And of course, if you're already coming at that from a perspective of I'm a problem, I am the issue, all that does is exacerbate that further, because all I was ever told was, you have terrible anxiety, you're terribly anxious, terribly anxious, but that's all that's wrong with you. That's your problem. And I knew, and the way I describe this in verbally is, I was anxious, but my anxiety was a symptom. It wasn't the diagnosis. It was a symptom of a larger thing. But that was, however much I communicated that, it was never listened to. It was never appreciated until the end of 2018, when I had a mental health worker who delved deep into not deep, but they delved a bit more, let's say. They kind of thought outside the box, which a lot of people just didn't do, and mentioned the word autistic for the first time. I think they had listened to my story. They'd listened to my circumstances, my struggles, my issues with life, and had gone away as part of kind of a multidisciplinary team and said, we think you might be autistic. And from that onwards, right up till the summer of last year, so 2023, that was when the diagnosis was finally confirmed. So it was a long gap in between first being told and actually getting the diagnosis, which, again, for anyone who has waited or has anticipated an official diagnosis, they will know that period in itself is not the end of the story either. It's not easy. It's a lot of waiting. It's a lot of anxiety. It's a lot of uncertainty, which typically autistic people do not like. And it's lonely. It's even more lonely perhaps than before, because you're thinking, okay, well, if this is part of me, what does that mean for my present? What does that mean for my past? And ultimately, what does it mean for my future? And all of those things are scary. And there isn't that many places to turn for answers, because that is kind of, I guess, a sign of where we are in terms of society's understanding of what neurodivergence means for human beings, which, it's getting better, but it's still nowhere near where it should be. And that is, some days that's harder to accept than others. But the diagnosis has changed my life. Of course it has. How could it not? So,
Thank you so much. There's parts of what you were saying there that sounded or felt quite familiar. Obviously, everyone's experience is different, but elements of that, regardless of what neurodivergent diagnostic you're going to get, the human interaction with that journey is to say the same. And there's something you mentioned there, I thought was really interesting, that bit in between when you think, oh, someone's saying, oh, I might have this. Okay, I'm going to look into it. I'm going to book in. So think about all these people on the waiting list that are waiting years. That bit in between thinking, oh, I think I might have this, and actually trying to find out if that's true, that gap, I don't think I could do that for years. I'm so lucky that I know enough credit score to borrow £600 on my credit card to go and get a private assessment, because I could not do that bit in between, to suffer for 30 years and then have to wait another few years to finally get the truth. I had no choice. I had to borrow that, do some overtime at work, pay it off, because it was so important to me to have that big moment when that email comes through and you've got your report, and my heart goes out to everybody who can't afford that or have access to that, are having to wait. Because I don't know, how do you feel about that? That bit in between is it's a fascinating journey, isn't it? You feel a bit lost. My truth is coming, but right now it's not there. That's hard.
All I can say is and again, it might sound a bit drastic to some people, but it's almost as if the old version of you, or the version that you had been so reliant on in terms of being able to mask that version of you, to be able to mask the different faces you needed to wear or the different personalities you needed to adapt in order to survive in society without basically just falling to pieces. All of that made up a part of what I call my old self, my old life. And I think once you're finally aware of what it is that forms such a huge, enormous core part of yourself, such as being autistic or having ADHD, etc., whatever else it may be, I feel like that version of me died. And I think the period between that former kind of extinction and the version that's sitting here in front of a camera right now, that period in between is perhaps even more lonely to a degree, because you are so desperately trying to find what's my real identity, what's my real self, who's my real self, what are their values, what do they need, what do they not need, who are they, what does the world mean really when I take all of this off, all of it away? Who am I? Who am I? Who actually am I as a person? And you don't know for a very long time, because it's a period of kind of, it's almost limbo, but you're still trying to do human life at the same time. And a lot of people say, oh well, it's, if you want it so badly, you'll wait for it. And it's like, I will, but it's not easy. It's like having something so vitally critical withheld from you for what seems like an unnaturally long amount of time, an unnecessary amount of time. And what do? You just exist. But I don't know for me, I don't know if I was living. I think I was existing. And that's not a great place to be either. So it is hard, and I completely agree with you. I feel for anybody who's currently going through those waiting periods, who's currently kind of in those limbo areas, because everybody deserves to know who they are. Everybody deserves to know what makes them 100%. Everybody deserves to have that foresight, that insight to themselves of, this is me, this is what makes me tick, this is what I embrace about life, this is what I struggle with in life, this is all of these things, this is how I tick. And to not have that, especially for decades, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. I really wouldn't. It doesn't matter if we agreed with each other, it doesn't matter if we disagreed with each other. I just wouldn't wish it on anybody, because it's not right. But it's indicative, unfortunately, of the society we currently still live in. The society that would rather turn away from stuff that doesn't directly involve them, rather than just be a bit more open-minded about life. And that tiny bit more openness, that tiny bit more curiosity, could in turn blow open an autistic person's life for the better, could blow open an ADHD person's life for the better. Because I always say to people, I don't need you to move the world off its axis for me. More often than not, it's the little things, it's the small things. It's knowing that you're open-minded. It's knowing that you're accepting of difference. It's knowing that you're aware of other people have different experiences of life. Other people see, hear, interact with life in a different way to you, but they're not that doesn't make them in the wrong. It just means they're experiencing it differently. And, it's those little things that could make such a huge impact.
Definitely. When I first started years ago podcasting, a lot of it was about the power of self-awareness, to be able to witness ourselves, witness our experience, witness our emotions, to not become our emotions. We're watching them unfold. So there's some mindfulness in there. And I encourage people, if they deep down know their truth and and they are waiting, self-diagnosis is completely valid and very, very powerful. If you're doing all of those tests, all the questions, and you keep scoring high, like, God damn it, I'm scoring so high. Own that. If you believe this to be true, own it. And, the psychiatrist you see may get it slightly wrong and say you don't have it. And then you see the next person, they say you do. So always tap into your gut instinct of that depth of you who knows this to be true. Find your tribe, listen to shows like this, read your books, and just start to begin to live your truth. So I encourage that straight off the bat. I literally, the more you're talking about all of this, the more I want to just do a 3-hour charity stream, because there's about 10 things you said there where I could go off on one for about 10 minutes. So I'm going to be a really good boy and stick to my questions. So the moment comes. You're about to find out. You don't know 100%. Maybe you have it, maybe you don't. I want to know, in that moment when you read or however it was delivered to you, tell me what was happening with your brain and your body. I find this really powerful because it can really help people understand that there's nothing more powerful than truth. So tell me what happened, if you can recall.
So just as a quick kind of preamble to that, so my assessments for my autism diagnosis, a lot of people, and this is what peeves me, using the politest word, about people who say everyone's autistic these days, everyone gets an autism diagnosis these days, everyone's ADHD these days. It's total, put the word in there that you can imagine. I honestly, I went through a 3-part autism assessment. So 3 different components at 3 different times over 3 different weeks. So I spent like 3/4 of a month being assessed, kind of examined, if you like. It's a very strange experience. And for everyone who says that it's easy, for everyone that says that everyone can do it, and it they'll give them out like sweets. No, nobody goes through that intense kind of assessment or investigation easily, or kind of, when it came through, I mean, after that kind of 3-part grilling was concluded, it took another week after that for it to come through officially, I think, or a week or 2. And I was in a supermarket at the time, and I can't remember why, obviously, just to buy something. And my phone buzzed in my pocket and my emails pinged up, and there was this email from the person I knew I was expecting. And I read this in the middle of a supermarket where they said, you meet the criteria, your assessment has concluded you are autistic. My official diagnosis was autism spectrum disorder, so ASD, as you mentioned earlier. I always refer to myself just as autistic, but everyone has different terminology that kind of fits their profile. It's a very odd feeling, stood in the middle of a supermarket, which, for anyone that's familiar with certainly perhaps more autistic individuals, supermarkets are not my friend most of the time, for various different sensory reasons. But it came through in the middle of a supermarket, and I just remember thinking, gosh, this is sad. And a lot of people say, why did you think it was sad? And I didn't think it was sad for my present or my future. I thought, this is sad for every version of me that's come before. Because he never got that information. He never got those answers. It's a really odd sensation, but there's almost an immense feeling of guilt and grief for the Jacks of pre-2023, because I had something in my hand there that he never got, which is hard. Even now it's quite hard, but I suppose on the flip side, it was, does my kind of realist, most truest, most kind of relevant existence kind of start today? And I guess I can say yes. yeah, it kind of does. It kind of did for me anyway. And here I am sitting in front of a camera on a podcast talking about the experiences, and it feels, everything I say, everything I do, everything I kind of navigate in life just feels more real now. So I don't think you can buy that for any amount of money. It's yeah, it's crazy, but it's very, very important.
Yeah, thank you. It's kind of like, for me, it was equal measure of devastating and liberating at the same time.
Completely. Those are wonderful, wonderful words to describe, and such polar opposites as well in normal circumstances. But it is a mix of that. It's a combination of that, and they both deserve the space to exist, and they're both equally as important as each other. But they are so completely different by comparison in terms of how they make you feel, or the thoughts that you have, the things that you linger on in terms of your mindsets and the way you perceive things. And I think a lot of people say when they get they think, oh, when you get diagnosed, all your problems disappear. No. It just makes all of your problems make sense. It gives you context, it gives you understanding, it gives you clear vision, but you're still very much faced with every struggle, every problem, everything that's ever gone wrong, or everything that's cut you into pieces as an individual in your past. You're still faced with that. You just look at it differently, but it still hurts. And I still now, I still think of stuff every single day and think that's always going to hurt. I might have the awareness and the knowledge about it now, but it's always going to hurt, because it could have been so different, but it wasn't. So, it's not all plain sailing after a diagnosis. And I say to anyone who is thinking as such, I understand that you, some people might hope that that's the case, but there is an enormous amount of grief with a diagnosis like this as well for a lot of people. Not all people experience it, but I certainly did, and that has to be respected. It has to be allowed its time and space and its relevance to work through and materialize and to kind of resolve ultimately in the end, and who knows how long that will take.
Yeah, thanks so much. And some words came up for me there. This sense of having to heal your inner child. So I talked lots about inner child work with trauma over the years with experts, and it's such powerful and important work that we can heal the inner child that was never seen or understood properly. I don't want to go too much into that because we could talk about that all day, but having to heal our inner child is part of the work post-diagnosis. Then the other part is coaching yourself. You're having to coach yourself into this new life. We're like, okay, so I'm probably still going to struggle here and there, but can I now be my own champion? Can I coach myself through with this truth? That's the last 2 months for me, coaching myself through, but remembering to go back and heal and create space for me to work with the child that never got seen, who can now be seen in this moment. So it's kind of like it's to and froing between those two things, whilst also trying to have a normal life. Oh, and guess what? You got fit in society still. Oh, you got ADHD. Oh, well, I'm glad. Someone said to me, just for a bit of fun, someone said to me, one of my bosses at work, so how did it go? I said, I got the diagnosis of ADHD, and he said, oh, well, I'm glad you know now, and then sort of walked off. Like, oh, thanks very much. Anything else? No, okay, I know. So that
Or
I'm
elaborate
done.
on
All right,
that,
you don't
or
want to maybe
no?
ask me how this affects me in the workplace or how we can work around. Anyway, that's a separate thing. This is happening a lot last 2 months. I'm getting stuff like that, and then really beautiful, gorgeous stuff where I feel seen for the first time, and I have to have a little cry afterwards. It's beautiful. So healing your inner child and coaching yourself into this new future, which is, quite exciting, I guess, in many ways. But even. But even yesterday, I said to you before the call, I had a really bad day yesterday, emotionally, really intense emotions, in dorsal state, as I call it, in my gut, gut anxiety stuff about have I done things wrong, or just lots of fear. And it just kind of made my evening really, really difficult yesterday, even though I was recording another podcast for that evening. So, this isn't going anywhere, and I'm not taking medication. So this isn't going anywhere. So at least I have some tools, but I'm going to have to work on even more tools now. And it means that you have to, like you said earlier, before diagnosis or afterwards, there's this kind of sense of, I can do this, I can get through this, right? I can go and do that event, or right, I can go outside, or I can do this conversation. It's exhausting, guys. It's really, really exhausting. And so many of us end up completely burning out, getting chronic fatigue, various other autoimmune issues. But this is serious stuff. We're having to really give it a good old try to go and live a normal life. And I want people to understand that it isn't just this, oh, you've got it, cool, you've got all your tools, you can meditate, you can go out for walks, you can, I can't leave my job, I still got to work full time. And I just want people to understand that it is a slog, medication or otherwise. So with that in mind, my friend, can you give us a little sense of today, everything you've just said? Tell me on a day-to-day basis, just as a chance for an ADHD and autism battle. Let's battle to the worst version of life. But tell me, no, I'm joking, obviously. But what are the big things that affect you day to day, as Jack today? Give us a sense of that. So let's see if it's familiar and similar.
Okay, so it's very, very unusual, but also very lovely because nobody ever asks you this. So my one of my biggest ways for me to cope and to feel comfortable, to feel regulated, to feel healthy, is structure and routine. They are huge, huge things for me. I plan my weeks from Monday through to Sunday. I have particular things I do on each day. I go to the gym. The gym for me, and I think you were saying brilliantly just a moment ago about, people think once you get an ADHD diagnosis, it's like, take your medication, you'll be fine. I mean, that's not true, obviously. But with autism, there is no medication. No, there is nothing. And that still blows people's mind because, I have literally had people say to me, oh, you're autistic. Can you take anything for that? And I'm like, no. And even if I could, that's not really the point. But, for me, the gym and exercise and fitness has become part of my kind of therapeutical kind of capacity. My need is fulfilled by that. So that plays a big part in my week. Obviously, I structure things around what I do with podcasting, what I do socially, what I'm doing kind of with just kind of day-to-day tasks. If I'm doing admin, for example, for the podcast or for other stuff, it's all kind of planned in advance. It's all structured. It's my routine. I know my routine before I get going with the week, and I fit that all in a way that I need to fit it in and I need it to be. And, it for a lot of people, they'd be like, that sounds dull. That sounds boring. To me, it sounds critical. To me, it's healthy or unhealthy. Because that's one of the biggest things I think I've gained from having a diagnosis is that sense of, as a human being, you need these things to thrive. You need these things to survive. You need these things to be productive, to be content. I don't like to use the word happy because I think that's unrealistic to try and be all of the time. I need these things to just be Jack in the best possible way I can be. And again, I also am aware enough to know that that's not always going to work out the way I want it to, but it's just about making space for that, of course. But yeah, my days are quite rigid. They are quite one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. But it makes such a difference. So why wouldn't I do it? And it's one of those things where you ask yourself now, you're like, why was I not doing this before? Because this is how Jack works best. And I have other autistic friends. I have other autistic acquaintances. I've also got other ADHD friends and acquaintances who do things very, very differently. And that's what I was saying earlier about the beauty of meeting people in this community is, you know, I know autistic people that have no routines, no structure, and to me that sounds like utter hell, but to them it's totally different. And it's all I've learned all of this as part of that kind of the journey in limbo between being told and being diagnosed, but also after diagnosis. I've learned all of this. I've learned what works for me. I've learned what doesn't work for me, and now I don't compromise on it. Now I don't give over power or kind of influence on my own existence to anyone or anything else, because I've worked it out. I've nailed it. I've got it done. So, you know, it would be foolish with me, and actually it would be so disrespectful to my previous existences for me to chuck it all in the bin and go, yeah, do you know what? It works for me, but other people don't really get it. So I'll just go back to trying to fit in. So yeah, it can be lonely sometimes because, again, your existence is valid and your existence means an awful lot to you as an individual. But yeah, not a lot of people get it. But, you know, I think I've gone well past the point of caring, to be honest. So
yeah, well, we've got to be our own, let's say, our own coach, our own champions for ourselves. That means we have to make decisions and structure things in a way that people won't get or understand or take offense. They might feel offended that you need to leave somewhere early and you need to create space. They're like, oh, right, okay. And because they've got their own stuff, especially if they're neurodivergent and have problems with rejection sensitivity like I do, you know, put two of you together and one of you needs to have a break and you don't tell them why, they may think they're being rejected. So that's why I love this community, because we probably all have a bit of RSD. So let's just voice it quickly. Oh, by the way, I just need to go. Definitely. I love you very much. Oh God, I'm struggling. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I get that. So, I mean, even if neurotypicals were able to be a bit more open about that, you know, I really like you, I'm not rejecting you. They could get a lot out of that too. It's a good dynamic.
I mean, I've said this. I said this on my own podcast recently. It was either the last episode I did or the one before it. I said this, that there are so many neurotypical people in society that don't realize how much they could benefit, enrich, grow, learn, and encompass totally undiscovered parts of themselves if they engaged, if they listened, if they increased the awareness. I think we can learn from each other. I've always said we can learn from each other. It's not one-sided. It's not listen to the neurotypical people because they know how to do life. No, we all need to be listened to. We all need to have that kind of pair of warm arms around us, because everybody has input. Everybody's got something that someone else won't have thought about that could actually enrich, improve their lives. But it's so easy as a template for society to go, no, we don't do different. Different is not how we do things. It's not how we get things done. It's not how everyone thrives. So not going to listen. And it's a great tragedy. But that's a different issue.
Yeah, that's for our next chat together. Yeah, thank you so much. And the question that all the way through, I was like, Owen, don't lose this question, which is, okay, you have all of this structure, and I'm sure you know why you need that structure. I want to know why. Why do you need structure? What are you trying to stop happening or avoiding? They're really bad words, sorry, but you know what I mean. Because I have a reason why I do it, but I'd love to ask you, why is it so important to do it? If you don't, what's going to happen, Jack? Tell us.
Brutally honest, if I don't have structure, if I don't have routine, if I don't have certainty, or at least a degree of certainty, because obviously 100% certainty is not really attainable, things get ugly, things get dangerous, things become, I enter into territory of questioning my purpose, questioning my worth. We enter territories of potential meltdowns, autistic meltdowns. I put my mental health at risk. So increased anxiety, opening the doors to potential depressions. I have had a previous diagnosis of PTSD as well, on top of everything I'm dealing with in terms of being autistic. So my focus, if that slips, it just opens the doors to potential nastiness that I think if I can put it in a nutshell, I've worked too hard to slip back into deliberately. If I can put that as kind of a soundbite, I've worked too hard. I've had to be too resilient, and I've had to really, really dedicate so much effort, energy, understanding to myself that it would be such a backstep, and a backstep I'm just not willing to make for anyone. So it just becomes unhealthy. And I think that's the story of my previous self before diagnosis. It just becomes unhealthy. And I don't want to be unhealthy. I don't want to be lost again. I don't want to be isolated again. I don't want to feel like a problem again. I want to do day-to-day life and exist as me, as my truest proper self, in the way that I know that works. And that's a non-negotiable, because the alternative is not worth the cruelty and the pain that comes with it. Not just for me, for anybody, but obviously when we're talking about my story here, I'm not willing to go back to those days, because being autistic and unregulated and overstimulated. We haven't even mentioned burnout. I mean, you mentioned burnout earlier. I mean, burning out, I will just repeatedly burn out over and over and over again if I'm pushed too much, pushed too far, overstimulated, completely overwhelmed with stuff. You'll get nothing from me, because my mental capacity, I always call it my mental battery, runs down much, much quicker than most people's. So I can give you what I can give you, but there's less of it to give, because if someone's mental battery is running down this slowly in a day, mine is much, much quicker. So you'll get less from me, but I still try to make what I can contribute effective, purposeful, and meaningful to me. So
Yeah, thank you. It's kind of this sense of honoring what life could look like if you don't. It's kind of like, I know it sucks and it's annoying, self-reflection with ourselves. Like I often think it's so silly that I'm having to do all these things, but just, with compassion, honoring that why is so important to me, really, really important. I'm sure it is for you. And I think it's worth doing that. And for me personally, chaos is the word I always think about. Like, if I don't do the certain things that I need to do, it's absolute chaos. So my brain and my body are just wild. So I can emotions all over the place. It's so sensitive to things, and it can send me down into deep, dark, dorsal, low mood. It can take me into unbreathable anxiety. And it's just, once you know the things that help you, it's really important, because that chaos for me causes strange behaviors, impulsive behaviors that aren't going to benefit my future. I just want people who are listening who are not neurodivergent or have neurodivergent people in their life and they're trying to support them. Imagine it, just any minute, at any moment, some weird, massive, intense emotion comes, or a crazy set of thoughts come. Because imagine living like that. It's not easy. And it's so important that we keep this steady, beautiful, fluid flow in whatever that looks like. And if people can just give us the benefit of the doubt of why we need to do that, because it might seem weird. It's interesting, isn't it? It's, I don't know how you feel about that, but that's what happens if that stuff's removed. It's not even, I won't even know what's going to happen. All I know is that chaos will ensue, and I meet that with love. Does that kind of make sense?
It does make sense, yeah. And I think not a lot of people will appreciate that if there's not the understanding level there, or the awareness around existing with a different brain, is self-regulation is such a huge part of your day-to-day when you exist differently with kind of a differently wired brain from your neurotypical peers, for example. And I don't actually necessarily blame people who, for example, aren't autistic or aren't ADHD for not understanding, because I suppose really in even our present day, but also with our history and our past, why would they know? Who's told them? How have they ever been exposed in any great detail to what it's like for an individual to exist, essentially experiencing the world differently wired, for example. But it's less for me about, okay, well, why does this happen and what does it mean? It's more for me about, okay, well, you may not have known then, but know now. Please, know now, because again, a lot of your energy that you end up expending is used, often in my case, explaining yourself to other people. I need that energy. I can use that for other stuff. When you're on limited resources, when you're kind of when you wake up in the morning, you're against the clock, against your own brain and your own body. Everything you expend becomes more important. And, like you were saying, emotional dysregulation for me is very real sometimes. It's knowing where these emotions come from, what they mean, why they're there, what the consequences are for them getting out of control. That's a big part. And I think, something my partner has done brilliantly is realize how utterly exhausting it can be some days other than other ones. And that's, my partner's not autistic, they're neurotypical, but he's done such a brilliant job of understanding that my capacity is not like his and is not like other people we know, and that has helped me to alleviate the feeling of I need to be like everyone else. I need to push myself. I need to compensate in a way. And that's just such a little thing, but it's made such a difference. It really has. It's made such a difference just to have that level of understanding, that level of empathy, and that space in your life day to day for someone to go, I hear you, I get it. And sometimes my partner will pull me back from life before I pull myself back from life, and say, you've taken on too much. You can't do all that today, because you know what will happen. You'll burn out. You'll get overwhelmed. You'll need to take today out of action. And it's, it's hard some days. It's hard some days because people are like, oh, well, look at you. You've got an easier pace of life. You've got a slower pace of life. It must be lovely. No one said I wanted a slower pace of life. It's the one I've got. It doesn't mean it's the one I've chosen. So, there are days when I fully resent it. But it's coming to terms with that. And that doesn't happen quickly. So, it's not plain sailing.
Yeah, the word resentment's a big one, isn't it? I'm very familiar with that because I'm only 2 months in. So, sometimes I just resent it, and I'm sick. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of just having this brain and this sensitive body. I just, and there's changes I would love to make, like just get a job that isn't taking such a toll on me. But I'm just not in a place right now to go into a new environment, be around new people, and start again. I spent years establishing myself in my job. I'm highly respected, and I've kind of created my own thing there, which is unusual in retail. So it's like there's benefits there. But yeah, the resentment's real, guys. We can only be compassionate for so long. We will break eventually at one point. Obviously, we get back on to compassion after that. But oh man, the resentment is hardcore, and
It has a place, and I argue with anybody who says it shouldn't. I think it does have a place, and it deserves to have a place sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, because we all turn out how we turn out, and we were all dealing with the set of cards that's in front of us that we were dealt when we were born. It's taken me, I don't want to use the word lost, but I have used the word lost before. I had to lose 3 decades of my life before I found out who I actually was. Some days I feel quite resentful about that. So, and I don't think that's misplaced. It's what I do now. It's what I do with my present. It's what I do with my future. Obviously, that is my motivational factor. And it's how I honor, respect, and care with love, compassion, empathy for the person that's sat here right now, for the person that has worked so hard, for the person that's been so resilient. And, you know, I can feel resentful sometimes because it's justified, it's valid, you know. But in a way, I love myself enough now to accept all sorts of different dynamics when I wake up in the morning, whether they appear positive or appear negative. You know, there's a space for them all.
Yeah, so true. And nice little segue there that you've gone to, which I'd really like to do, sort of mostly wrap up here, which is to look at the things that about us since diagnosis that we're noticing as being useful or powerful, or not even to do with neurodivergent, just who we are as human beings. I don't want to be like, because of my ADHD, I'm this. I hate that. No, I'm a human being who so happens to have that ADHD, but there are elements of my personality which are just really cool and fun and could maybe assisted by neurodivergence. So this idea of it being superpower makes me want to vomit everywhere. I have no interest.
I can't bear. I can't bear the superpower thing.
I literally, my first week of rebranding the awareness space, I put superpower in because I was told that's kind of what you're supposed to say. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, no, I haven't asked for this brain of mine, and I certainly would like to think about the idea of what it'd be like to be neurotypical in that way. Mm-hmm. Don't tell me when I struggle on a daily basis that I have a superpower. I guess Batman in many ways was a troubled soul, so I guess he was a superhero who certainly didn't see it as a superpower. Anyway, back to it. So yeah, just to start us off, a little back and forth here. You know, what I really love about me, because it's, you know, this whole thing has been about some of the struggles, but I'm just like so passionate about everything. You know, I get super hyper focused, but like when I'm into something, I just get shit done, man. You know, if I want to do a podcast about, as soon as I got diagnosed, 2 days later, I'm rebranding, I'm getting guests on after a year of not podcasting. I'm really proud of my passionate brain. Let's do this. People, I don't know how you do it. Like, you got this on, you do a degree. I'm passionate about all of them. And I'm really proud of that, because some people might have a lull and they don't know what they care about, or they don't know what their values are. But I've had that. So whether ADHD hyperfocus is helping, who knows? But if it is, that's pretty cool, because it's really helping my passion. So hit me with some stuff about you that you really like that may or may not be linked to ASD or autism.
Okay, so things that I love that, bless them, my lovely mum and my lovely boyfriend might not always love so much, is I have such a strong sense of justice, to the point where if I feel injustice, I will jump in, I will interject. Because I can't bear inequality, I can't bear injustice, I can't bear to watch people struggle, I can't bear to watch people be sidelined or misunderstood or abused or bullied or mistreatment. I can't bear it. So I will always be there, right in there. I love that. I love it because again, it has to be an autistic trait, because I don't know where else it would come from, because the rest of my family don't like conflict. I don't love conflict. I'm not afraid to use my voice. And I've had to work really hard on that. I've had to work really, really hard to go, you've got a voice, and if you want to use it, use it. I'm really proud of that. I think more than anything, I'm really proud of my ability to actually speak up for myself, but for others too. And then obviously next best thing, start a podcast and use it there. I think yes, admittedly, see things very black and white, which again is a very common autistic trait, as just on that side of things. So it allows me to walk sometimes into conversations or into dialogue or the way that I communicate with other people, either people I know or people I don't know. It allows me to communicate and highlight things or point things out or shift perspectives on things where a lot of people might say, this is how this works and it's non-negotiable and we don't move it. Whereas I can now actually say, I see this differently. I look at this differently. I experience this differently. Maybe we're missing something here, or maybe we're not appreciating whatever it may be. And just not with any kind of glee or smugness, but just watching as kind of things evolve naturally in that moment where people think, oh, yeah, that makes sense. There's nothing more validating than being able to come into a situation and go, yeah, I'm completely different from all of you, but does it mean I'm the wrong one? Does it mean I'm not any use? Or can I be helpful? Can I contribute? Can I shift the dial a little bit? And I'm happy to help. But just ask me, just include.
It's so interesting about the justice element. So here we are, we have a high five, let's match up. So we may have different diagnoses, but we have the same big one. I hate conflict so much. I hate it. I avoid it at all costs. I'll do anything to make sure you like me, to do anything wrong. It's devastating if you say anything that's similar to doing something bad. However, if I see something happening which is really not right and really not cool, no thank you, I am jumping in and I'm going to get that shit sorted, which makes no sense because I'm terrified of confrontation. So just a very quick story, everyone. At work, I'm really proud of what happened here. This was way before, this was like 2 years ago. But there's an old manager at my shop who used to be a bit of a bully and a little bit mean to the younger employees. Fine with me, highly respected, but just sort of picked on them a bit, said they were lazy, why are you being so slow, but kind of doing it with a bit of a jokey twinge. And he kept going on and on about my friend. I can only watch this for so long. And one day I bumped into another part of the shop where it was quiet, and he was really upset and he was getting really emotional. He was crying. He's like, I try my best. I'm trying my best. And Lee, the manager's just being so mean. I was like, no beeping way am I. I was bullied heavily in school. I am not allowing my 40-year-old self see this unfold. So next day, I asked the store manager and him to come to the office, and I was shaking. Right, my hands were shaking, my heart was pumping. I thought I was going to vomit everywhere. I said, "Look, I care about him. He's a good friend of mine, and I really want to bring this up. I really think what you're doing in front of the other manager. I really think what you're doing is really affecting his mental health." And literally a year before that, one of our staff, Justin, an amazing guy, took his own life. And he had a family and a little boy, and it was the whole store was devastated that we lost our friend. I get emotional, and I will not sit back and let another employee go down that road. And the manager didn't mean it. It's just his weird communication style of him trying to do whatever he was doing. But standing up for him that day, even though I was shaking and everything, I came out of there and I was like, But I knew it mattered, and I couldn't stand there and watch it. And I don't know if that's ND or not. And if it is, that's very cool. That means despite anything that we struggle with, when the time comes, we are a stand-up human being who will do what it wants for our fellow human. And I think that's really powerful, isn't it?
I think so. I think it's, as you were telling that story there, I've had a very similar experience in a previous workplace many years ago, and it was one of the worst times of my life being in that place. I should never have worked there. I should never have gone there. But again, I was heavily masking at the time. So I was just trying to assimilate and fit into society as other people expected me to. And I had no clue of what my place was supposed to be. And I had a very similar experience to you. And that's, I spent a lot of time being in trouble because it was like, oh, here he goes again. He's off in to defend somebody. But I was exposed to unnaturally unpleasant levels of workplace bullying in that environment. And it was kind of my first and kind of only, really, at the time, my first and only experience of what a typical job I thought was supposed to look like. And I thought, gosh, this is harsh. This is bad. And it took me until pretty much the end of my time there to suddenly go, I can't keep watching this happen. I can't keep watching people walk in with a sunny smile and leaving with their soul crushed in their hands. And yeah, so in basic sense, I kind of took the same approach as you, but it was my undoing in the end, because I just couldn't be a part of it anymore. So, but it's a great example. I mean, even it's over a decade ago, and I still think of it and think, I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I didn't slink off quietly in the end. I left in kind of, I left with my principles at the forefront, which I'm proud of.
Yeah, what I really like about that is that at the end of the day, no matter what neurotype we are, so from typical or otherwise, is that we're still humans who have a set of values. We've had a set of experiences. Some of us have had traumatic experiences. Some of us had wonderful times. You know, we're all just on this crazy journey. No one asked to be here. We were just born one day, and we're making the most of what we've got. I think just neurodiversity aside, neurodivergent aside, we all are humans who have to live the life that feels truest to us. That's what this is about. So I'm going to try and wrap up before we get out of hand. And like I said, you know, me and Darren can talk forever, and you spoke to him, I can speak to you forever. I am feeling some sort of 10-hour raising of money situation where we all take turns to jump in and out. But this is your chance, Jack. This has been amazing. This is your chance to send out a message to anybody that's listening, that's trying to live a full life in the face of whatever they're going through neurodivergent-wise. Give us a sense of hope and how amazing we are. So I would love to hear in your words a big, you can do it, guys.
I want to say to people that on the days where you feel totally lonely and isolated and totally wrong, and in the sense that you have no place or purpose or value or meaning to yourself, to others, to wider society, there are now over 8 billion people on this tiny little planet. You're one of those, and there is not another human being exactly like you. There can't be. There isn't. And that in itself, to me, means power, means something so powerful, means something so incredibly unique, something so incredibly special, and something that will never happen again. Who you are will never happen again. Not in the 100% identical way. And on the days where that feels like it's not enough, think about it that way, because it's incredible. It is literally incredible. You are incredible. And, you know, society doesn't promote the things that actually a lot of us need. Society doesn't really promote compassion or empathy, understanding of others. You know, society doesn't really encourage emotional maturity a lot of the time for a lot of corners of society. And, you know, kind of reflection of self is not overly encouraged. But they're all powerful things. They're all wonderful, wonderful tools. And not just benefiting yourself, but for benefiting each other. And the power that they give everybody and the things they unlock are so, so vitally important. And actually everything that makes you different makes you unique. And that is a gift. It is a gift. However, and that is not undermining or kind of minimizing anyone's struggles, anyone's experiences, anyone's limitations, anyone's struggles with capacity from day to day. But it's yours. It's your story. And I always say, and this, I get called cheesy for it, but it's true, is your story is your story, and you're the main character. Everyone else is a guest character, is a supporting character, or maybe they're a cameo. You're the main character. No one else is the main character of your story. And again, just like you're one of 8 billion people, that's a huge gift. Your story is your story. However it looks, whatever it feels like, whatever's in it, whatever's not in it, it's all yours. And do with it what you will, because at the end of it, no one cares what anyone else thought about it. Only you will. And that, I think, in a nutshell, is as powerful as you can feel.
Amazing. Thanks so much. So powerful. And I think a lot of things that we talked about here today is all about whatever you need, just do it, and don't worry about anything else, anybody else. Like Jack was talking about with the things he needs to do on his daily basis, what I need to do, just do it. If you need to leave somewhere early because you get overwhelmed, just do it. The right people will go, yeah, cool, do you want me to walk you home? That's the person you want. You want the person to go, oh, you need to go? All right, no worries. Yeah,
Exactly.
like, I'll call you a cab, I'll come with you. And they're like, oh, that's all we can ask for from another human, is to see us at that level. So if you need to do anything or structure life in a way, just do it, guys. You are worthy of it. You matter. And me and Jack have had enough time where we felt like we didn't matter, we weren't worth anything. But here we are, doing the beautiful work, despite the struggles we still may have. So, as powerful as I thought this was going to be, it's turned out to be true. So the podcast is as true as our stories, which is great. So before we go, let everybody know how they can check out Auticast, where to find it, and just a very brief sense of the things you discuss.
Absolutely. So Auticast, the podcast itself, can be found to listen to on Spotify and Apple Podcasts currently. You can also follow the Instagram page, for the official Instagram page for Auticast, which is at Auticast_podcast, or if you just put Auticast in there, it will find its way to you as well. There is all sorts of updates on the topics we cover, the guests that we have every time we make an episode. There is also some advocacy stuff that I post just personally as well, that I kind of mix in there as well, just to engage conversation. And there is also the feature, of course, to direct message me as the host of the podcast. So if there's anything that you're curious about, if you have any questions, I always say to people, if anyone's worried or if anyone's struggling, I'm not a professional, but at the same time, I am also an autistic adult. So on that level, I can always open my door to anybody who needs it, and that's a really, really big part of it for me, and that sense of overall community as well. So yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. We have such a lovely collective of audience members and also supporters of it, that it's a lovely place to be. So everybody is welcome.
Amazing. Yeah, I encourage people to listen in. I always want to have someone on the show who's a podcaster as well. Like, listen to the episodes first. And I can give it a seal of approval. It's really honest, really authentic, and full. It's funny to say about justice. It's full of saying what needs to be said, because it's really, really important. And that authenticity is, at times hard to come by. So congratulations to you for that. So I'll put all the links in the socials and in the description of this episode. So I just want to thank you one more time, Jack, for coming on. I'd love to have you back on. I think there's so much we can talk about. Just pick one topic and just dive on in. But I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute delight, and it's been a privilege to talk to you today about such really important stuff. And I would absolutely snap your hand off to come back. So yeah, just give me the call and I'll be there.
Amazing stuff. Thank you so much. Neurodivergence unite. That's what we're all about here. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. Like we said before, there are 3 series on here. So, Me, Myself, and ADHD, which is where we hear people's stories. The ADHD Thrive Guide, where I bring on coaches and therapists. So we've done a few of those, and they've been really, really fun. And then me and my partner, Carla Jo, fellow ADHDer, we talk about all things ADHD as a partnership, and her as a woman and me as a man. And they're much shorter shows. So if you want a little short action, then go and check that out as well. So Thank you for listening. Thank you for all support. Hello, all the new followers and commenters. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. It feels like justifying why I'm doing what I'm doing. So thanks so much, and we will see you next time.